queues. Oh, the screen is going. Supriya, I don't
Yeah,
know.
sorry about it, Dennis. It's back.
Cool. Do you mind going full screen? And then obviously these things sort of moved into the enterprise service bus, right? I'm sure at least some of you have worked in the enterprise service bus and queues and things like that, perhaps not Corba or RPC or socket programming. So whether it is, so even Mulesoft started off as an ESB, right? It's still, the core of Mulesoft is still an ESB framework. So these are technologies. So some of ESB still exists, and messaging exists. But in my opinion, so these are things from the past, or blasts from the past, I would like to call them, right? So I mean, they are there in that evolutionary cycle. Now let's move on to the next slide, right? And let's look at the present, the here and now. And if you look at what you guys are doing, and this is your world, what you're doing day to day. So I do not expect any surprises for you. So if you look at the next slide, right? So why are we doing this and what we have? So the main reason why we are looking at some of these technologies is because of this concept called Internet of Things, right? So of course the systems and devices are there from the past and they will continue to be there. So what has actually changed in the current world? So we have the concept of Internet of Things. So what does that mean, right? So more and more things, or it could be a factory production line with lots of sensors. It could be a modern car with various sensors. It could be a street lamp. It could be a weather sensor, right? It could be all kinds of things which are now internet enabled. For a layman's term, there is a device with a Wi-Fi module or a SIM card in it, which has got an IP address and it has got internet connectivity and it is able to connect to the rest of the world, right? Put it simply. So that means it's no longer the case that you have to have a server sitting in a data center. It is no longer the case that you need to have a laptop or a mobile phone with the internet enablement so that it can communicate. All kinds of things are being enabled with internet. It could be your front door. It could be your oven, right, in your kitchen. It could be your kettle downstairs in your kitchen. It could be the light in your house. All of these things are internet enabled, which means the need for integration and the speed at which these things need to be integrated, the standardization required for these things to expose endpoints and the need for these devices to integrate and send messages very efficiently and be fault tolerant because they may be on a network that is not reliable sometimes, or for them or several devices to respond to a certain event that is happening, or these devices sending telemetry or the current state as a stream constantly. So that's a stream bit. So these kind of requirements are coming. So these things are certainly influencing how we go about integrating, right? So I mean, you guys are in the Mulesoft world, we typically write a lot of REST APIs, right? And these REST APIs could potentially be a facade sitting in front of a legacy system, or it could be enabling, or in fact, a microservice. You could write a microservice from the ground up in a Mulesoft container if you want to. Whether that is a cost-effective way, I won't get into it, but yes, you can do that, right? I mean, GraphQL is another technology that is evolving. So Moses here is a key man behind what I would say what Mulesoft is putting out there as GraphQL offering. He was in fact participated as a representing Mars as a customer of Mulesoft giving them the requirements of how the Mulesoft GraphQL offering should shape up. He was working with the actual product manager at Mulesoft, giving how the product itself should be built and shaped up, right? So I mean, when you look at events and streams, you're talking about technologies like Kafka and things like that, right? And Moses later on will cover the advanced event topics, I'm sure. So that's where we are today, right? Now perhaps let's look at where things are headed to. What is the next sort of 5 to 10 years that the future looks like, right? Next slide, please.
Next.
Please. So, so the advancement I see, and I've taken the liberty to insert a word everything in there. So we evolved from Internet of Things to Internet of Everything. So why do I think this would happen, right? So most countries in the world have got 3G/4G network these days, and many countries are starting to roll out 5G. But in the sort of next, 10, 15 years, as 5G is rolled out and potentially 6G is in the horizon, the bottleneck, the challenge that we have today of having the backbone and the infrastructure to connect literally everything out there will go away. So these technologies will allow, alongside IP version 2, enough infrastructure and addresses and bandwidth for practically everything to be on the internet. Practically everything has got network connectivity. Practically everything, including your kitchen sink and your pavement and your roof. And so here's something I'm going to say controversial. It's no longer controversial when I think about it. So I'm sure most of you know Elon Musk, right? The man behind Tesla, and the man who is behind the SpaceX company, and he says, he wants to colonize Mars, right? The planet Mars, not the chocolate company Mars I work for, right? He wants to send people as space tourists, and he will be willing to migrate to Mars and settle there. And the same man is behind a company who is looking at creating potentially what you and me would call a cyborg, right? A humans with embedded chips and sensors and whatnot with internet connectivity. And they have already put out the prototype. And it has got, yes, I accept it is a controversial thing. And machines potentially controlling humans. I mean, you can argue both ways. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? But especially in the medical world, right? If you are somebody who is paralyzed, who is challenged or disabled in a certain scenario, there's a lot of benefit, right? The whole point of, like I said, back in the day, humans used to go to the forest and hunt and gather honey or hunt animals, and we used to live. But we now buy our food from the supermarket. But the evolution of human life is all about comfort, right, and making life better. Probably so that we have more time, and we can sit at home and watch more Netflix, which I'm not so sure is a good thing. But we have to look at how do we improve humanity, right? And there is a certain you can see for humans, there is a certain challenge in terms of our physical strength. There is a certain limit to our cognitive function, right? How do you enrich? How do you make it better by adding additional capacity? So imagine a world where You don't have to remember everything, right? I think we are more or less there. I mean, Google, let me Google that. Nobody says, let me search that. People say, let me Google that, right? Googling has become second nature to human beings today. But imagine a world where you don't have to type or even speak to Alexa, right? The moment you think about something, your brain is connected to a certain embedded sensor through which that sensor is able to communicate to the Google, do the search, and present the search result to your brain in such a way that there is a human brain to that sensor seamless interface through which you have the answer. So you are essentially tapping into the knowledge out there via that interface, right? So that's what I think. They will be. It is not beyond the realms of imagination that in the next 10 to 15 years we will have. Forget about APIs. APIs are old news. We'll have HPIs, human programming interface. I think, right? And these things are going to be potentially AI driven because this AI that would become an extension to human brain, and hopefully it'll be um, you know similar or even better in some sense for humans. And there is a concept within AI. There's a general AI and there is specific AIs, right? So today AI is as good or sometimes even better than human beings on specific areas when we look at machine learning aspects, but it still lacks uh, to be at the same level as human. But when they come up to that level is what you call the general purpose AI. Once these things happen, so there are a few things that need to happen in parallel, right? The machines need to become similar to human being in terms of cognitive function. Will they ever have empathy? I don't know. I don't think so. So I still think humans will be superior because it's not all about intelligence, right? You have the IQ and the EQ. IQ, probably yes, you can train a machine, but can the machine be empathetic? Probably not. So it will still be humans and machines, coexisting, collaborating very closely, seamlessly through a human programming interface, and hopefully for great things to come. So that I think is the future. And we will just look at what is out there for in the far future. And if Supriya, if you can go to the next slide. And I was thinking what to call this. And I have to admit, I spent a few minutes Googling for a term because I didn't know what I wanted to, and I thought, what is beyond the immediate future? How can we talk about this, right? And the only term that I could come up with was a prophecy, because it's we don't know. This is going to be just a hunch of what is there in the far from future in 30, 50 years time, right? So let's go to the next slide, Supriya. And the way in which I think things would come up is a collective consciousness, right? What does that even mean? I mean, it's a bonkers term to even say. What does that even mean, right? So the idea is that, there is a lot more intelligence out there in the world. And I'm again going to say something that is perhaps some of you might not agree, but at least I believe it's not just. I mean, we are not alone here in this little planet Earth. When you look at the billions of stars and the galaxies out there, there may be other intelligent lives out there, and potentially the internet that we have on planet Earth today, speaking, connecting these devices and sensors and machines, you could imagine a world where there is an internet that spans across galaxies, an intergalactical distributed neural network where humans, machines, and potentially other intelligent lives elsewhere all connecting together seamlessly, right? And then you need to have that interface, and you will require additional electromagnetic waves potentially, which we don't even know what frequency that exists and how do you tap into that, because these are long range communication. And can you get to a point where, I mean, now I'm talking a little, so this is where science fiction and some kind of spirituality all blend together, where that people from the past have talked about, they meditate and they tap into a bigger force in the world. So I think as a technologist, there is a way of tapping into the universal consciousness, the collective consciousness, which is nothing but, in my opinion, the knowledge, the thought, and the brain power of everything that exists out there. And if you have a universal, and at that point, you don't even need programming, a universal interface of everything, that everything can communicate to each other, that will be a world I think would exist in the far future. So that's a prophecy. It's a little bit bonkers to talk about it, but I thought, why not? We'll just try. So with that, I take a pause. If there are any questions, we can certainly answer. I don't know if it is now or later. I'll leave it up to you guys.
Are there any questions, Sandeep, Sumit? So there is a question, Dennis, from Ravi. So he wants to know that how your organization Mars moving towards the new technologies.
Right. So let me give you the company and is obviously looking at various technologies every single day, and we don't see, back in the day, companies used to have a CTO function, and the idea is that the CTO function will scan the marketplace, identify new technologies, and they will do POCs, proof of concepts, and then if it makes sense, they will introduce. But it's no longer the case. Technology is the underpinning of everything that happens in an organization today. So there is no organization that is not digital. That means every business person in the organization is as interested as the IT guy in the company. So every single person, I would say, in the organization is looking for new technology out there that'll make their life easy. And I'll give you a very, very simple example. The other day, one of the brand person from one of our chocolate brands, snack brands, came to us and said, I want to have a survey capability in my company, but I don't want any old survey where I send an email with 5 questions. I want a conversational survey. The conversational survey is such that the consumer come on board on a video and they talk about the product, and it's done in the survey format, and the system is able to look at the user's expressions, the language, the sentiment, all analyzed by artificial intelligence, and me as a brand manager give an idea of what the consumer is feeling about my application, what they're saying, what they're expressing, what their even facial expression is saying beyond the words, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that everybody within the organization is looking for the next big technology. So what am I doing, right, in my role? So I'm always looking at how things are, how the industry is evolving, and how do I do that? You network with your peers, right? B, you go to some of the websites who are looking at the technology aspect. I would certainly recommend one of the websites, which is Engadget. I quite like that website. So they talk about devices and the like as well, but they also keep an eye out for new tech. You could look at other websites like CNET and other things like that. And once you have an idea of where things are, what you should be doing, and what we tend to do, is we try things, right? Most of the new technology, they offer a free sign up, right? Most of these things. If you look at cloud companies these days, they even give you certain credits in the sense that you can spin up services, you can try things. It's no longer a concept. So be open minded. Spare an hour in your day, book your calendar out, right? read some articles, try some new technology, go to forums, ask questions, participate. This is how you can make progress there.
Absolutely. Is there any other question before we move to the next session, which will be by Moses?
I think we
Okay.
don't have any question. Yeah, this was the only one.
Yeah. So Ravi is saying thanks, Dennis, for sharing your experience with us.
Sure.
Thank you,
Thank you all
Ravi.
for
And
listening. I hope it was somewhat reasonable. I know it was a little bit abstract and conceptual in nature.
yeah,
Hopefully,
you as a person, you always think ahead in the time. That's what I know about you. And thanks for giving approach to all of us. At least because that's what happens when we are working in one technology, we stick to that technology and we are experimenting within that technology. So but today you have given approach, like probably in Mulesoft also, like day by day it's growing. And yeah, thanks for sharing the latest and the nicest approach with all of us. And it was indeed wonderful.
I think he also
Dennis.
gives some of the reasons to live. Something is coming up in next 15-20 years. So live for that and
Yeah,
enjoy.
yeah.
all right, nice one. Thank you. Over
And
to you, Sunil.
Shekhar is saying, Dennis, that I can relate the journey of integration with my experience. And thanks. And he's getting nostalgic also. So Shekhar, we totally understand you.
Of course. Thank you.
You're making us sound like a kids. We understood that, but it's okay. Anyway, so over to Moses. Moses, I would like to request that you please share your screen because I have to do some other activities. So please.
All right, no problem.
And after the session also, if there is any specific question, you can reach out to the organizers and we'll try to get it answered. We can see your screen, Moses.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you, Danas, for outstanding speech. It's really looking forward for some of the prophecies to be fulfilled. I think I believe in that prophecy too, because the world is changing, and the amount of everyday technology invention, like I'm also following, Elon Musk inventions. I think we will end up going there with your prophecy, right? So coming to this topic, right, as Danas mentioned, so the invention of 4G or introduction of 4G, as countries are looking for, the rolling out of the 4G, 5G technology. I'm sorry, it's 5G, right? So I think event-driven architecture, you slowly, as a Mulesoft integration developer and architect, you might be playing any role within Mulesoft space, but you will how much importance of event-driven architecture is all about, and how do we really build this event-driven architecture with right tooling and right mindset and right design patterns. That's what I want to talk about today. So some of the topics which I want to cover, like I would like to give a quick overview of integration patterns and why all of a sudden, a special focus on event-driven architecture. And also, what is the main challenge basically we are trying to address with event-driven architecture? I would like to basically all to the Mulesoft experts a little bit of brainstorming with you, right? And also, and I will take you through what is event-driven architecture. Probably some of you already know. Probably it's just a reminder for all of you. And what is real-time API family is all about. Event-driven, when you talk about event-driven, it's real-time. That's what we need to think about, right? And what is Mulesoft as an iPaaS technology, an integration technology, providing tools to build the event-driven architecture in a correct way, right? And also, what are the different ways that we can basically implement event-driven architecture? So there are different levels, maturity levels in implementing event-driven architecture, right? So in the end, I'm also going to share with you a sample or a reference architecture, how an event-driven architecture could look like, right? And we can entertain some questions. So coming to the different integration approaches, like Danas has started the evaluation, right? So today we are at a very matured stage wherein, we started with point-to-point integrations in the past, right? Now we think about a lot of reusability, API. That's all possible, to do with technology like Mulesoft iPaaS, with integration platforms. Basically, it offers connectors, API, microservices you can build, and you can also do EDI and some other sort of use cases. And we have also we can do integration using request response approach, and we can do integration using batch file processing. So even in MuleSoft, you can do that using scheduler and batch framework. And also, if you needed to do a full-blown batch file processing or a managed file transfer, we do have some solutions in the industry, right? You might have had, through as a managed file transfer, which nicely integrates with MuleSoft as well. I'm also recently working with other managed file transfer solutions as well, with the vendors as well, right? And finally, our hot topic today, event-driven communications, right? So why there is so much focus today? So I just gathered from the IT research, right? Some of the powerful statements by Gartner. I believe you all know Gartner, right? So as you know, MuleSoft is the leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant in the iPaaS space and API management solutions. So I truly agree with all the statements. That's why I actually wanted to also go through with you. It's very important that you all understand why EDA is important. Because when it comes to business, right? So for business, it's always important that speed is important for them. So whatever technology you bring in, but the requirement from business is always standard. Of course, it is changing with the technology invention as well, but speed is always important. Your solution should be cost efficient, and your solution should be scalable and resilient, right? How do you really build, right? So before we talk, how do we really build all of those and meet customer expectations? You believe it or not, event-driven architecture has become a very critical component in the digital transformation journey, which helps unlocking the data from the legacy systems. It facilitates a lot of data movements from any to any. Think of the 5G world. Even in the current without 5G, you have a lot of applications, a lot of devices that needs to talk to each other. The amount of events that need to be captured or generated, right? The data is always time sensitive, so the value of data expires as the time duration goes on and goes on, right? So the event need to be captured and handled on real-time basis. That is why event-driven architecture become a very critical or a component in the digital transformation journey. So if you look at some of the statements by Gartner, right? So these are basically captured in 2019. Probably they have better statements than this. So by 2022, we are already in 21. Even notifications will form part of our 60% of the new digital business solutions. You see, so that's massive. And even 50% of organization managing API will somehow incorporate an event-driven architecture and using event notifications into their operations. So, however, event-driven architecture is not so easy to build. It's all, to start with the right thought process, and you need to have a right technology and approach to solve such complex event-driven architecture problems, right? So let's go to the next slide. So here, before I jump into it, I really wanted to take you through some practical, approach. So there are so many problems in integration wherein event-driven architecture can solve. So one aspect, one challenge I want you to basically, think through when we talk about real time, because as I said, data need to be in real time, that need to be processed, right? When the system generates some events, device might be sending some event that need to be captured, right, in real time manner. But when we talk about real time API, by default, a perception, most of the cases which I have seen is REST API, because traditionally API can deliver data in real time does not mean REST API, is a real-time API. I might have shocked you, some of you, right? So please bear with me. I'm going to explain, right? So REST API is an interaction pattern or a request response in pattern in nature, right? But does it solve everything in the integration space? This is where we need to change our mindsets, right? So what are some of the problems with the request response pattern, right? The consumer, as you know, in the request response pattern, there will be an API provider and there will be API consumers, right? As you can see the diagram here. The consumer needs to ask the provider always for the updates rather than, a notification need to be sent from the provider. The data is ready. Think about an order scenario, right? An order is created. Instead of the consumer receiving the notification of an order is created, think about like no consumer is asking, okay, do you have a new order? Think about a manufacturing scenario. So a plant is asking, do I have some the new orders today? So instead, the order should be notified in real time to the plant saying that, hey, plant ABC, you've got 10 orders today that you need to be fulfilled or manufactured. So that's the problem I'm talking about, right? Consumer need to continually ask the provider until the consumer really get what is expected data. It's not only wasting the resources at the provider side, at the consumer side also, they need to manage, special logic and build, expensive solutions. So when I say expensive solution, right, let me explain, right? Think about the consumer side. The consumer side, the consumers can grow exponentially. The provider need to provide such scalable solution, need to think a lot about the load which is coming in, the traffic, scalability, and this will become, for sure in my experience, I can tell you, the REST API sometimes becomes more expensive because you need to add more resources, memory or processing power, right? So that becomes an expensive solution. So customer side also sometimes it can become expensive because if you think about the cloud era, the cloud, yeah, it's easy to talk, it's very easy to add a new server, but it comes with a cost, right? There will be sometimes rate limit throttling policies, the cloud side or governor limits. If you go on, there are number of calls beyond you increase certain limit, obviously the cloud provider is going to charge the consumer as well. So how do we avoid this situation, right? That's where we need to take a different approach, because RESTful request response pattern is not the answer for every integration scenario, rather, right? Because as I said, the value of information decreases, over the time. So the events need to be captured in real time and reacted and responded on real time and take the informed decisions, right? Imagine I can give you one example in real time. In a manufacturing scenario, let's say a production line is got some issue, right? So instead of that event need to be captured and sent, relevant predictive maintenance tool or some support teams. Imagine like that is waiting until somebody is asking if there is any problem. That's really worse. Instead, the data need to be captured. The event need to be captured when a machine got corrupted or the production line got disturbed due to whatever issue, the quality issue or some error, right? That need to be sent immediate notification to the relevant parties so that they can come and fix the issue. So that will have a lot of business impact. Trust me, like due to production line issues, companies lose millions of dollars. So instead, we can really improve with events. The customer experience, and we can implement solutions like predictive maintenance, etc. Right? Because the RESTful API is always impose, consumer always initiate the interaction, right? Rather than the provider giving the information in real time, right? So that's why event-driven architecture, because request response is not the answer for everything. Share the data or exchange the data between devices or with the system, with the systems. So event-driven architecture becomes a necessity because the amount of data increases, the customer expects the better experience. The data need to be processed in real time, right? As I said, the time is always critical, because if you don't respond to an event, you might lose millions of worth of either business or orders. It could be anything, right? The data need to be captured, processed on real time. So that's the different approach we wanted to take. So these are some of the statements by Wikipedia and companies like specialists like Soles. So what is event-driven architecture, right? So event-driven architecture is basically a software architecture design pattern, right? So defining how an event should be produced, detected, and consumed, and reacted to the events, right? So as I keep repeating this same statement, the value of information decreases over time. That's very crucial. So some of the statement by Solis, if you see, the software event-driven architecture is a software design pattern in which decoupled applications can asynchronously publish and subscribe events via event broker, right? So basically, EDA defines how applications and devices, connected devices and microservices talk to each other in real time and detect the events in real time, process the events, and take decisions. That's what an event-driven architecture basically gives you a flexibility and agility required for the businesses, right? So that doesn't really mean that, I don't want to make a controversial statement like, event-driven architecture alone will solve everything, because APIs are still required. So as Gartner predicted, along with the APIs, request response patterns, right, we will also have a lot of strong focus on event-driven architecture in the companies, right? All companies already started thinking about this, and so many companies already taking a wise decisions to implement the event-driven architecture with right, mindset and the design approach. So some of the concepts are really important in event-driven architecture. As you can see, 3 boxes. So there are event publishers or producers. That can be anything. Event publisher could be, a machine or a device or a train or an airplane, right? And or it could be an ERP system, or it could be mobile device or any cloud service that can generate an event. So an event is basically triggered due to maybe a change in the state, a significant change in the state, that you can call it as an event. When event is produced, that is captured and published. As you can see, we have event broker, right? So what's an event broker? So event broker basically gives you the technology that requires to receive that event and deliver that event to the required parties. So basically the event broker helps you to route the event to the relevant parties, right? And there are a lot of the features comes with event broker. I'm going to talk about in the reference architecture slide. But however, as you can see here, one key topic in the event driven architecture, right? So the topics. The topics is nothing but it's a metadata about an event. Basically, describe the data. You don't, because without event broker, I have seen a lot of implementations like content based routing that you can still do that, but a standard implementation always goes by topics. The event producer only need to generate an event only once. That is captured and received at event broker, using the topics, right? So we will have different subscriber queues, which will basically how a subscriber queue is receiving an event based on the routing logic, right? If he's subscribing to a specific event, that routing logic matches, then the queue receives at a certain event, and eventually that will get distributed to the event consumer, right? What event consumer will do? He will receive the event, and then he will need to map it maybe to his own specific format, because the event publisher might be publishing the event in raw format that needs to be translated, and that will be processed, right? That's the kind of event driven architecture concept we talk about, right? So we have event publishers or producers, and we have events. Event is, as I said, it's a significant change in the state. So we can talk about a lot of real-time examples, right? An order is created in the B2B platform, right? That need to be sent to a plant, to an ERP system, right? So that's order basically received, right? And then order is basically fulfilled, or order is created, or it's manufactured. The product is manufactured and is shipped to basically warehouse, and it delivered to a customer. These are all different events we can talk about, right? So events basically becoming, becoming a lifeblood of a modern digital organization that need to be basically produced, detected, consumed, and reacted upon. So in the receivers, right, it can be a microservice
Moses,
which is
I'm
received.
really sorry to interrupt you. There is a button, like there is a tab, stop sharing. Beside that, there is a hide. Can you click on that hide? Yes, thank you
Delete.
so much. Yeah, just, yeah, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, basically the receiver could be a microservice which is receiving the event and processing in the MuleSoft, right? Or it could be a data lake streaming directly the events from the event broker, right? This is a minimum concepts we can talk about when we think of event-driven architecture, right? So this topics also can be alias referenced as a channels as well, event channels, right? Just some people use interchangeably topics or event channels, right? So so that's the concepts here, like event-driven architecture concept, right? If I move on to the next slide, so this is really interesting, right? So what is real-time API, right? This slide, obviously, I actually inspired by some of my readings in the internet on the event-driven architecture, right? So when we talk about real-time API, as I said, request response pattern is not the real-time API, right? I know some of you might got hurt because you love API, right? But still, the real-time API, the reality is, right? This is the family of real-time API. So let's talk about event-driven API. As I said, event-driven is an architectural style or a design pattern that defines how systems should respond or react to the events as they occur, right? So some examples of real-time, right, like PubSub and streaming APIs and push API, right? These are all comes under a bigger umbrella called event-driven API. So if you talk about publish and subscriber, I think most of you know MuleSoft also provides a lot of tools to implement publish and subscribe pattern, right? I'm going to talk about that in the next slides. So basically in the publish and subscribe pattern, event is only produced once by the producer. This is what we talk about reusability, right? In the point-to-point integrations, right? So you need to build in a different manner. So the source application or a system or a device need to send events to different applications. They need to send those many times as the receivers grows. But in the publish and subscribe, you don't need to do that. Event is only produced only once and sent to the broker only once, right? And once it is published to a topic on the event broker, basically event broker is going to apply the subscription rules that we also call it as a topic routing to basically route and deliver the message to the relevant subscriber, right? So that's what a publish and subscriber. Subscriber can choose to unsubscribe. If they don't want to receive, they can unsubscribe. That's the beauty of publish and subscribe. If they want to come in, they can resubscribe again. So I'm going to talk to you how we can implement using MuleSoft in the next slide, right? The streaming API is basically a consumer pattern, right? So example, a JMS listener or a microservice, right? Streaming the events from the event broker, right? That's the streaming API I'm talking about here, right? So how it defines how a consumer should receive the message and process the message, right? So we can also talk about, how we can basically map it to your own structure and how we can process it either in database or a file. That's up to the streaming API consumer. Once the event is received, what needs to be done, right? And the next set, which I want to talk about, is push API. Push is a producer pattern, right? So you might have seen several times the event hooks, right? A source application would like to notify a receiver or a subscriber, basically, if something event has happened, right? So the push API is a means, basically, I can talk about web hooks, right? Or a notification APIs. Basically, that you can configure at the source application end, right? And when the event is generated, the webhook is triggered and the webhook receives the event and basically they're going to process the event. That's the event-driven architecture or a real-time API family I would like to basically talk about, right? So it's so easy when we say event-driven, but we have these many different flavors in the event-driven, right? So I'm going to basically go to the next slide. So let's talk about what MuleSoft is basically providing the different technologies or features for implementing the EDA. So you all might have implemented already Anypoint MQ. So few things, right? For just for a reminder that Anypoint Exchange is one thing that you can implement. You can basically take advantage of Exchange to implement event-driven architecture, and you have queues that comes with Anypoint MQ, and you have management console basically to track the statistics of the messages or events that goes through the Anypoint MQ, and you have Anypoint MQ connector basically which provides the connectivity to the Anypoint MQ to implement publish and subscribe patterns. And Anypoint MQ also provide a REST API for the consumer applications or a provider applications can basically publish the messages, and it also provides other features like data encryption, time to leave, and other features. Right? I'm not going to basically talk a lot in detail. And it also provides a JMS connector. Generally speaking, this JMS connector works with any provider, any event broker. It could be Kafka or Solace or anything which supports JMS. The JMS connector you can work with. And various other implementations like custom implementations, we have seen and implemented for different organizations, because sometimes Anypoint MQ alone will not meet the entire requirement. If you need some sophisticated routing rules that needs to be built, then you talk about some custom implementations, right? So here I want to give you one example of a basic EDI you can build using the Mulesoft provided means, right? So first example is a complete event notification with full event data. So basically here in this example, Salesforce is generating an event, right? That's a notification to the consumers. So how we can basically solve when an event is generated, as I said, that needs to be detected. So in Mulesoft terminology, you can build a system API. So obviously you know most of you know the Salesforce connector, which you can basically hook up to all the events that can be generated. If you know it or not, Salesforce also provides certain event-driven mechanisms as well. It's called CompD Event Bus. So they also have some event bus, and Mulesoft also provide certain connectors to basically tap into those events and take those events and process those events. So once event is captured, you need to basically publish that event to the subscriber. So it's also important that what I said, event is only sent once or pushed once to the subscriber. So in the MuleSoft, you need to ensure that that event is not lost for whatever network issues or technical errors, right? That needs to be basically maintain the guarantee delivery or recoverability of the message. That's where you need to use the tools like Anypoint MQ, message queue. So once the event is published to MQ, basically either process API or it could be any other receiving API can subscribe to the event or receive this event and process it. That is one way of implementation of a basic event-driven architecture. In the second example, right? So this also I have implemented recently with one of my use cases. So the sender or a publisher will not send the complete event payload. Rather, he will only send a small event notification, something got changed, right? The way we have designed this, right? In the system, in the MuleSoft, we will implement or we implemented a system API that detects this event, right? And that event will be published. So we will have subscribers. If any subscriber is basically interested in this event, what the subscriber can do, because event doesn't contain the actual data, then the subscriber, here it's in process API in the image, can initiate a callback to get the actual payload. So that's what you can see step number 4 in the diagram, right? Step number 1, the event is pushed. MuleSoft has recognized and detected that event, and that is published to Anypoint MQ. And the process API basically subscribing to this event and sending a request to the system layer, right, to get the actual event payload, right? That's what the call number 5. That's as a Salesforce query. You can write the code to basically get the actual details using the event. Basically, in the event, you're going to contain some primary key or event key that you will use it to get the actual details from the Salesforce, right? So As you can see, the response is sent back, and the process API can do whatever it needs to do. It can publish to a downstream system, or it can send it to a data lake, or it can send it to another microservice that needs to be processed. So obviously, these are not my images, because these are just captured from some of the existing Mulesoft blogs. I thought it will be useful to share with you, right? So moving on to the some publish and subscribe, a little good example than the previous
Moses,
example, right?
just before moving
Yeah,
to the another slides, we have two questions. We can take it up right now so that
sure.
people will be in the link. So the question from Ravi is, when should I opt for Solace or Kafka? What are the factors we need to consider?
Brilliant question. I'll answer that in my next slides for
That's
sure.
nice.
If you can wait.
Definitely, Ravi and I both will
Yeah,
wait. And then there's a question from
yeah.
Deepak. Is event-driven architecture worth the complexity it comes with to test and debug? Like what he's mentioning is there's a complexity while testing and debugging. So is that the worth architecture, and how come exception handling becomes difficult?
So basically, as I said, event-driven architecture is a pattern, right? It's not a
Mm-hmm.
technology. And and MuleSoft definitely is providing a lot of good tools to implement it. Yes, is it difficult? Yes, it is difficult and complex. It's not so easy. So that's what I said. It's a mindset change. You cannot just jump into the event-driven architecture without understanding the real business requirement. As I said, the data is time critical. If you need to capture that, right? So in my, I think next example that is going to clarify with more relevant example, an event is generated that needs to be captured. Even in this example, right? So you can't solve with other means. Imagine you're not implementing event-driven architecture in the same example which I've given. Let's say Salesforce is generating events, not capturing it. Let's say it's capturing the orders, right? So instead, somebody is requesting this information that is interactive. Either somebody is logging into an e-commerce platform or an order, some mobile app and trying to check the status, right? That's interactive. That's not real time. Or a batch or a scheduler consistently polling Salesforce application API or a system API, checking for updates. That simply are wasting the resources on the Salesforce side, right? Because you're hitting the Salesforce side without knowing you will get an answer for
Yeah.
sure, right? So instead, so you're allowing the source application to basically send when the data is ready. You're not asking every time, because Salesforce is also doing other tasks. It's a big system. So you're not really making the system busy, right? You need to also worry about the infrastructure, right? Maybe in the Salesforce example, it's a cloud-based, but if you have some other applications, they don't want to receive too many calls. That will jeopardize their user experience, right? Because the systems are maintaining transactions, they're receiving data from users. Imagine you're making your database server always busy, but at the same time, users are also using the same data through user interface. That might have an impact. You need to consider those aspects when you're building a request response pattern or a polling approach. Rather, you need to promote or think of a loosely coupled. Here, nobody is waiting for nobody. We are just receiving event, reacting as and when the event is
Right,
occurring.
absolutely.
That's beautiful,
There is
right?
a question from
So
Aditya. Is
Sorry,
like what
Supriya,
side?
just to close out the previous point, right? So
Oh,
Moses. So when we think about, I mean, I just wanted to bring that discussion of different patterns into real life, just to give a slightly different perspective, and just to keep the conversation a little bit light-hearted as well. So, and my theory is this: as you chain several APIs, an experienced API talking to a process API, talking to a system API, which is, I don't know, God knows whatever it's doing. That is what I would typically call what happens in human society as gossip. Something is happening, this person talk to that person is talking to that person, that person is talking to that person. By the time the final person get to know about what this person said, oftentimes the truth is somewhat different. And
changes.
I connect that back to your question about how about error handling and troubleshooting. But the beauty of event driven is that everybody who is interested in what is happening is actually listening or subscribing to the source. I all of your neighbors are coming and talking to you directly, so there's no rumor going around in your village, essentially. Does that make sense? So this is a better pattern in the sense that you're actually getting the truth from the source.
Yeah, rather than any other middleware system. Yeah, totally agree. With respect to that only, what slides you're sharing. So question from Aditya is whether option 2 is better or 1. So whether event only is better or complete event notification with full event data is better.
Let me first thank Danas. Thank you so much, Danas. Really makes sense. It's a real-time
Yeah,
example, real
I
example,
agree.
right? Yeah. So there is no right and wrong answer here. Basically, it's all depends on the use case. So I've seen people are moving towards more of a two, because you are making an event-driven architecture even more lightweight, but you need to be also careful. You are again involving request response pattern in the step number 4 and 5, right? So you need to think of the cloud limits and all those things as well. So if the event is lightweight, it's not carrying a heavy payload, probably it makes sense to go with the option number 1. So if event needs to be lightweight, because it shouldn't carry like in a batch like an information. That's the latest information. So because that's where people do mistake, like they'll send a file, a big file, or they schedule a batch and send that. That's use case to use case. But events in nature are very lightweight, right? And that has to be lightweight. That you need to always consider when you're designing an event structure, right? So yeah, as I said, it all depends on the use case. I've implemented personally 1 and 2 as well, so it's working. Both are fine. In 2, I see a slight disadvantage, because you increase amount of network calls more and more, because you need to query back. That if the use case doesn't demand a good latency, so probably you can still go with option number 2.
Aditya, I hope that is clear. If you still have questions, you can keep pasting it in question and answer session, so we can take it up in the end of the session. Okay, Moses, we can go ahead.
Yeah. So this is another example of the EDA implementation, right? Think about SAP. It's let's say it contains master data. So right. So master data could be product master or customer master or vendor master, anything. So let's talk about product master, right? So those are basically in SAP. You already have a lot of solutions existing to publish those event notifications in the form of iDocs. Probably that's not the best in the world, because it's a legacy in nature, and you need to understand SAP a little bit. But good news is we have Mulesoft, right? So Mulesoft basically resolves all those connectivity challenges and complexity in connecting with SAP. So Mulesoft System API can receive that product master iDoc information over an RFC call, right? And that iDoc, either after converting into more canonical format, or it all depends on the use case, you can also basically push that iDoc into an exchange. So here comes Mulesoft feature of exchange, wherein you can have different subscribers to the same exchange. So the good news is all these subscribers is basically not pulling back in SAP, do I have some data? Rather, they would expect the data get pushed to an exchange by Mulesoft System API, and they receive events. All right. So and then depends on the use case. Either you can have a single process API, or you can directly basically point those messages to different system APIs. Those systems could be a Salesforce e-commerce platform might be receiving this product change in the product information, right? It could be a new product added, or maybe a new attribute got added, or maybe unit of measure got changed, something got changed in the SAP. Yeah, so that needs to be notified to several systems. Imagine a request response pattern, right? Imagine all the systems are asking, do I have some data? Do I have some change? So that makes SAP system busy, right? Rather, the publish and subscribe pattern using this event-driven architecture makes the life very easy, lightweight, and the systems receive the notifications in real time, right? So think about the same, probably mass data is not the best example for data. Like it could be orders data, or any, the shipment information that need to be sent to your data lake for a predictive analysis, or machine learning type of use cases. So streaming directly from event broker will facilitate, and I can give you another real-time example. For example, a payment gateway scenario. When an order is made or a product is bought using the payment gateway, probably the payment information or a credit card need to get sent to a fraud analysis kind of machine learning type of implementations, right? And also the same payment information also need to be sent to the bank to check like whether the funds are available or not. So all these type of use cases we can literally implement using what I'm showing here on the, maybe this is one example with much data. You can talk and talk on. So there are several examples. So this is another basically pattern that we can implement using Mulesoft, right? This is another form of EDA. So now, when I talk about Mulesoft means, right, you always need to think about this, right? So Mulesoft is an iPaaS, which also provides, I would like to call it as a good basic event broker, which is your Anypoint MQ. But in the organization, when you work in the bigger organizations, so sometimes Anypoint MQ might not be always the solution, right? It already provides some basic means you can implement the good PubSub pattern, but you also need to think about some advanced features. Sometimes the tools like Solace, right? So here I'm taking Solace as an example. There are a lot of PubSub platforms in the industry. So basically Solace, and Kafka, I can think of, and Google PubSub Plus, and TIBCO also something they have got. And there are a lot of basically even Azure has got some the PubSub implementation, like Azure Service Bus, Event Hub, and Event Grid, things like that. So Solace I've taken as one example because I'm closely working with Solace these days, like to implement some of the event-driven architecture for my clients. So as you can see here, so the same example, right? The master data example is sent to system API, because so we using a dedicated event broker, obviously it comes with a lot of advantages, right? I'm going to talk about in the next slide. So you will definitely agree with me why you need a dedicated event broker like Solace, right? So they standardize the implementation, right, using topic structure. As you can see, the master data is published to a topic string, something like a sender system is SAP, and the type of data is product master, and the change is basically finished goods and about a material called 1001. So if these subscribers interested in, let's say, product master, or maybe all the changes which are happening to finished goods, right? The subscriber can receive, basically they will have dedicated queues, each subscriber, right? It can basically, based on the routing logic matching, the Solace can basically deliver to one of these queues. And if the logic is matching, right, these are the consumers. Either they can receive the event directly, as you can see here, right? So Solace also provides some direct means using REST delivery point, or even the receivers can connect to Solace using their event streaming APIs, right? Or sometimes the event is very raw in nature, it needs a translation. In that case, you'll bring back your iPaaS layer here, which is system API, and then you will convert that into system specific format, right? So let's say in this example, Salesforce, right? Mulesoft got a good connector. You can do that mapping in the Mulesoft using DataView, and you can basically deliver the message to Salesforce, right? This is one example with a dedicated event broker other than Anypoint MQ, right? So I have seen people implemented more and more, and also if the people need more advanced capabilities, right? So they can choose tools like these dedicated PubSub platforms, right? Basically, Solace, a little bit of introduction, right? So because my examples are around Solace, so it's a Canadian company. They make basically the middleware softwares like event brokers, the like the software and appliances as well in different forms, and they also got a SaaS solution as well, right? So this is one example which I can talk about a dedicated event broker use case scenario. So any questions, guys? I would like to basically pass here before I move on to the reference architecture, why you need to think about a dedicated event
There is
broker.
one question from Raghuram actually. Can't Solace directly receive events from SAP?
Yes, it can. You'll see that in the next slide.
Yep, sure. Thank you.
Moses
Any other
basically
questions?
knows how to read people's mind. So your every question's answer is next slide. You will see now. Anyway, so Moses, yeah, we can go ahead.
All right. So for the community benefit, right? Because you might be thinking, why I need a dedicated broker, right? So I created this. You can call it as a draft. It's not really published anywhere. It's my own, right? So this is a reference architecture to help the community basically when you really can go to dedicated event broker like Solace, right? As I said, Mulesoft already provides a lot of means. So you can also customize the solutions other than Anypoint MQ. So these are my basically the patterns which I wanted to talk to you. When an event publisher, like it could be SAP or an IoT device or a cloud service or a factory system, right? When an event is generated, when they are capable of talking to a dedicated event broker directly, they can actually publish, right? If they are not able to talk, right, that's where you can actually leverage an iPaaS strengths, which can connect to any system, either back office or backend systems, or it could be a cloud system using connectors. You can tap into that event first, right? So you can talk about system API, it could be process API experience, it depends on the scenario. And then you can apply certain transformation rules if required, and that can be routed to a dedicated event broker, right? So after that, right, the dedicated event broker decides where that event needs to go, right? A receiver again can be directly receiving the events without any intervention of the iPaaS, which is Mulesoft. But sometimes in the second use case scenario, the event publisher is publishing the event directly, the raw event, to the dedicated event broker, right? However, the subscriber or the consumer is not able to digest that. He don't want to translate that. He don't want to take a headache of translation, right? That's where you can again bring back our iPaaS layer. You can route that event basically to the Mulesoft iPaaS, and you can either translate or transform that message and do the protocol bridging, right? And then deliver the message back to, I think there is an arrow missing. Sorry, guys, I was working in the late night. And that will go to, again, event subscriber, right? So when do you really go for a dedicated event broker? You need to think about all of these advanced basically features. So Anypoint MQ is a cloud-based service, right? Sometimes you do require your data. You cannot basically, cross the boundaries. Your data should reside within your data on-premise, right? Some dedicated event brokers like Solace can be installed anywhere in any cloud deployment or any deployment model, right? It could be on-premise, or it could be third-party cloud, or it could be any cloud, right? So that's where you can get some advantage, than the normal basic tooling, right? And it provides a dedicated event broker provides a pub sub pattern, mature pub sub pattern. Because when I said mature pub sub pattern, so you can't do a routing using wildcards and a lot of advanced topic routing features with the basic features in Anypoint MQ. You can still do a good subscriber model, even a pub sub model. But if you need advanced pub sub, that's where you need to choose tools like SOLS, right? And also, event brokers also comes with a concept like event modeling. You can actually model your events there like an API designer concept, and you can also promote reusability, and you can basically document all your topic structures in the tools like event portals, and then everybody can go there and see what are my topics there, how many systems are basically publishing. It's similar to like an API portal concept there. And security, right? So basically, who can publish, who can subscribe, and how to restrict the message routings should be only routed to specific subscribers. So all those advanced features like authentication and authorization and encryption, all those things will come in the security, right? And also event replay. So not every tool in the world provides event replay, right? But advanced dedicated brokers provide event replay, right? So sometimes, as I said, data is sensitive. Sometimes subscribers are not ready, right? Maybe subscriber failed to receive that event, but he wanted to get that event in the past. So you can basically store temporarily in the event replay and actually replay all those events. Especially this is useful in the case where data migration use cases, right? And obviously it provide monitoring, like who is connecting the statistics and health and etc. Advanced tools in the monitoring. And the streaming APIs and connectors, I talked about that. It could be a .NET or a Java, or it could be any API. Basically, dedicated event brokers provides a lot of protocol support because it's a protocols. It's not just REST. If a publisher or subscriber is capable of basically streaming messages or sending messages using JMS, they can do that. Maybe they are in C++, they are in .NET. They can still be able to do using streaming APIs. You don't need they don't need to always connect to REST API, right? And event catalog, I already talked about that using event portal. Basically, you are cataloging all your events. That's very advanced features. That's a very matured implementation, right? When you start with event-driven architecture itself, you model your event, you create a catalog, you publish that event into a central place like Exchange, and make sure the people what events are published so that they don't build solution, rather the solution visible, right? And Dan has talked about mesh, if you remember in his slides. Event mesh is a very advanced capability or an advanced feature of dedicated event brokers, wherein you're no longer talking about just one broker, but group of brokers, created a network and start talking each other, some advanced feature like dynamic message routing. When a publisher can send to a message or an event to one broker, but the other brokers in the network might be interested in that, and that message will be automatically routed to those brokers, and then their subscribers to each dedicated broker can subscribe those events. So you can create a mesh and share information with very efficiently, and basically your recoverability, reliability, all those things will come into picture when you talk about event mesh, right? That's very advanced feature. Obviously, your DevOps, the way you want to create topics and subscribe and create messaging service. So they provide a lot of services. So if you need all of these things, and definitely you need to think of a dedicated event broker. I'm not sure I answered or a previous friend question here.
Questions I think people can put, but meanwhile we can take Deepak's question, which is nowadays we see that async API is really booming. Can you shed some lights on it as well? This is Deepak's question.
So I haven't really worked on async API a lot, but obviously these dedicated event brokers also provides async API in nature. As I said, streaming API, it could be in .NET, it could be in Java, or any of your in your own preference, right? So some of the dedicated event brokers I've seen, they also provide an async API in nature. Yes, obviously it is gaining a lot of boom. Maybe I can get back to you, Deepak, with more details. But personally, I haven't implemented async API yet. Probably that's a use case we need to discuss very soon.
Yeah, Deepak is saying yes. So yeah, any other question? Aditya, is your question answered? And Raghuram, I think we have said yes on that, whether Solas can directly receive events from SAP. I'm just scrolling through the questions, but I don't think so there is any more questions. But still, we'd like to provide you some 2 minutes. If anybody want to, speak or have some question. What kind of a hosting options Solis is providing? Moses, that's the question.
There are a lot of options there. You can host Solis anywhere in the world, basically. You can deploy that in your own VPC, right? Or you can, Solis also provide a SaaS version where they can also, you can also take their own Solis VPC as well. It's like they take care of like a SaaS solution, right? It's a kind of a Mulesoft option. Mulesoft deploys, and basically you can Cloud Hub is deployed in AWS, right? Similarly, Solus also deploys either in Azure or AWS. You can also deploy Solus service in the PaaS services as well, like our containerized service like AKS, things like that. So you can deploy in your
Absolutely.
own premise as well, like in your own
Can
data
I
center.
have on-prem option? I think Ravi,
Yeah.
he said, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes, you can install. There is a free version also from Solus, and it's software as a service. You can download that free version and you can run your own broker in your own laptop as well. And obviously, if you need more advanced features like event portal and some cloud console and easy to manage and a lot of features comes with, as I said, advanced features. If you need all of those, you can go for a subscription or a licensing model that you need to negotiate with Solus.
Okay. Ravi's another question is, what is the licensing model?
I think that's not so publicly available, but you can basically, it's a broker level. What I know is like one broker is like one license that you need to pay. If you need another broker, so if the count is growing, and they also have some connection packs as well, like enterprise packs. Certain solution will only work for let's say 5,000 connections, client connections. At the same time, if you need more, if it's a solution, you need to buy those extra packs. It's like an SMS pack that you need to basically enable that on the broker. They can install certain things and then make you enable to deal with more scale, basically volumes.
So yeah, I think any other questions? I don't think so. Any other questions are there? If Moses, are you done, or you have any other slide? I think this is the last slide.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, as I said, right. So event-driven architect is an architecture style, guys, and please make sure you build loosely coupled architectures. Don't make a point-to-point, and always don't think when an API or a use case is coming to you, request response is only the answer. You think about event-driven architecture because it really gives you to build a scalable and I would say distributable architecture that you can scale up massive scales, right? But taking the right foundational steps is really important in the event-driven architecture, so that you just scale up as the volumes
There is
demands and
another question from Ravi Teja. When there is a replay of a messages, failure of message delivery, is there any dead letter queue comes into picture instead of replaying?
Dead letter is there for sure. You can use dead letter, but dead letter also will have a time to live. Basically, we always set a time to live, right? It cannot be forever. But so dead letter you need basically is more for support teams to reprocess the messages which are struck, things like that. But replay is a feature where we need the event, the original event that needs to be received in the same manner. So the replay will really help. So again, it comes with a cost as well, right? It needs a memory to basically host those messages, and you can't be also use replay forever as well. You need to basically have certain time limit to think about replay, because you can't store an event like a permanent data storage for a year and ask for a replay. So probably a few weeks is okay, or maybe a week or 2 weeks is okay.
Okay.
But
So I
more
think
than that,
Ravi, I
really
made
make
you
sense.
as a host, but don't leave the meeting. Otherwise, we'll be in the mess. But you can clear your questions if it is still not clear. Ravi, do we have you? Okay, so meanwhile, Sanjana has a question. In case of a large data processing, is it good to only transfer metadata of an event, or we should avoid using event-driven architecture in case of a large data?
Very good question, Prabhu. joking. So let me think, right? So when you say large data, are you referring maybe a batch type of or an ETL use case? Because it all depends on the, when you say large data, right? Context is very important. So event driven is not definitely for a kind of a ETL or batch processing type of thing. As I said, so data needs to be captured in real time and processed. That's where event driven architecture helps you to automate the integration or system to system, system to device connections, right? So when you talk about large data, you can some tools basically offer a message size up to 30 MB, tools like Solace, right? Some that also you need to think about it, right? Because guaranteed delivery is also important. You can't just push the message and you think that can be delivered. The limit is also important. So yes, you can use it, but I don't recommend to process large heavy sets using event driven architecture. That's not it. Event driven architecture is not to process the heavy loads. Instead, because as I said, the real time data is always lightweight. That needs to be produced and the event needs to be distributed. So you can scale up, you can chunk the messages and publish to a channel, and then that can be processed using the streaming concept. So you can consume the messages instead of receiving one message. You can improve the consumer side, the listeners, more listeners. That's you can talk about concurrency or a number of listeners you can increase. That can process large number of messages at a time. You can get thousands of messages at a time and process it. That depends on the pattern.
Okay. Any other questions? Definitely, we have a time limit, but if there are any questions via me, you can ask these guys. These guys are available on LinkedIn also. So you can get connected and clear your queries if there are any. What we can do is, Sandeep, we can start with our quiz. So I'll request speakers to stay because we need some pictures and we need your approval on the winners also. So there's a quiz over on which Sandeep has created some 3-4 questions. And as you know the pattern, we'll paste the question here and whoever knows the answer, except the speakers, can put their answer here and we'll check like who's giving the answer first. And that
Yeah.
person will be the winner. Yeah. So Sandeep.
Yeah, so Supra, just keep an eye on the chat actually. So he's going to respond first. Okay. So
Very
guys, I'm
sharply.
making it very simple. It's not a complicated questions, very straightforward questions I'm asking. I don't want to complicate things. So something related to the topics we discussed today. So basically ESB and EDA. So let me put my first question here in the chat. So it's a MCQ, so you can answer the options.
Yeah.
So I'm going to paste it here. Okay, yeah, here you go. Oh, I think it's a little bit of jumbled.
Can you put it as a snapshot? That will be easy.
Yeah, 1 second. I think people started answering.
People started answering.
We can try from the second question.
But David won. David, I didn't notice you're here, but hi. So yeah, the answer is B. I think let me read out the question, point out the correct statement. And ESB is not a physical bus in the sense of a network. B, ESB is an architectural pattern comprised of a set of network services that manage transaction in a service-oriented architecture. C is ESB is a set of service that separate clients from a components on a transactional basis. And D was all of the above. So Sandeep, are we confirming that B is the answer?
I think it is D, right? It could be all of the above, right? If you read it properly.
Yes. So I think the right answer is given by Sham Prasad. Sumit, can you make a note of his ID and name also? Sham, I'll request you to Sham Prasad. I'll request you to put your email ID here. Okay. And yeah, time up for the first question. Now the second question, Sandeep.
Yeah, I'll just make it little more. So I can put a screenshot there, right?
Yeah.
Is that fine?
Yeah. They should be able to see it. That's it.
I don't think I'm able to do that. I'll put the text again. Sorry for that.
So Giridhar, Gaurav, you are also given the right answers, but you were a bit late.
Yeah, here you go. The next question.
Uh-huh. So the question is, ESB provides a solution to the problem of what type of integrations? One-to-many, point-to-point, hub and spoke, and a peer-to-point. And David has answered it as hub and spoke.
Who put A as the right answer or B as the right answer?
Let me
It's
check.
Prasad who puts A first, and Sajid puts like he puts B first.
So the answer, the one right answer is one-to-many.
No, it's B actually, point-to-point.
It's a point-to-point, right? So it's Sajid who has given that answer. Prasad, you were close, huh? Okay, fine.
Sajid, please share your email ID in the chat, just the way Sham Prasad did.
Okay, so this is going to be our last question. I'm not wasting
Yeah,
much of a time. This is
this is the
something
last.
which Moses discussed. It was there in Moses' slide as well.
Sajid, the treat to us. Huh?
Yeah, this is your third question.
Select one of the Mulesoft provided features for implementing event-driven architecture: FTP, JMS, HTTP, SFTP. Oh, yeah, it was there in the slide.
I think Giridhar.
Yeah, Giridhar. Correct. Ah, Deepak, you're late. Prasad, you too.
Okay, that's all.
Okay,
No
anyway,
more
I think
questions.
we just need 3 winners. Definitely. So, but I think thank you, participants, and just I would request you to be there for just for one picture.
Wait, Supriya. So I think Giridhar Meka, right? You answered it correctly. Can you share your email ID? Yeah, I can see that. Thank you. And also, like, if some of your colleagues, some of your friends are like, due to weekend, they're not like it's
Able
not
to
possible
join.
for them. They're not able to join this meetup. So we are going to
Mhm.
share the recordings soon in our page, so they can revisit there at our meetup page, and they can see the recording and this, like
And the
the whole
slides
session. Yeah,
also. And the
exactly.
slides also.
Yep.
Yeah. And people are saying thank you. I'll just request one moment for people to stay, but we can capture. Sandeep, can you come on video? Sumit, you
Yeah,
too?
sure.
Just 5 of us first.
Yeah, there you go.
Sumit, are you set? Is everybody set? Dennis, are you set?
I'm
Okay.
always
Okay. Always. Okay, I'm just clicking it. Just one moment. Just one moment again.
A lot of shorts.
We all are models, no? Anyway, so I'm just enabling video for other people and they can come on the video. And yeah, very important thing is you will get the feedback links. Please do not forget to, share a feedback. It's very important. And also let us know that what kind of topic you would like to see in future. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Deepak. Yeah, people are saying thank you for you, actually, Danis and Moses. Anyway, so I'm making the video enable for other people.
Yeah. Please, let's have a big picture once.
Let's have a big picture. Yes. So let me know once you guys are able to, but please don't leave the meeting if the picture is not done. This baby virtual, link is getting improved, but not as of now. Sandeep and Sumit, can you make few people as a host? Because you have rights.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, start making them as a host. Then only they can come. Moses and Dennis, meanwhile, would you like to share some feedback about your
Experience.
feeling, about your experience here?
you mean for the session today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely a great initiative. I see a lot of good questions and um, interaction in the chat. Good to see a lot of people turning up on a weekend where where, where typically people tend to do their personal stuff. So the interest in perhaps learning and networking is really good. So good, tremendous effort, guys. Thank you. And again, you guys. So whether it's Sandeep, Sumit, Supriya, you guys taking time out of your personal life to organize this and basically give something back to the community. That's really commendable.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you.
Moses, anything from your end?
Yeah, this is a fantastic forum, guys. Really, I really appreciate your efforts, and time, taking your personal time and conducting this and also giving back to community. That's very important. You learn and also share your experience with others. That's really important, right? So thank you so much, guys, for making me part of this community. And I also want to thank my co-speaker, Danas. It's a great experience, and it's an honor to be part of this group. Thank you so much, guys.
I think most of the people are hosts. I would request people to come on video. Just
in fact,
one
all of them.
click. All of them. Yeah. Ajay, Santosh, Shekhar, hi. Sajid.
Hi, Shekhar.
Yeah, as Moses and Dennis truly explained that, it's a weekend. There are few people probably they wake up at this time. So I know them well. So thanks for taking out your time and joining our session. And I hope that in the upcoming Kochi meetup also we'll be able to see such a nice participant list. And thank you for being like interactive with everyone. I'm just clicking one picture, just people can start posing.
Yeah, I'm already posing. Just click.
Clearing. Okay, and please do not forget to fill up on the feedback forms. That is something which will keep us going. That's very important. And thank you, all of y'all. I think there is no more questions. And the next session is on 24th April, the plan is, and it will be on website. Okay, just to give you idea, but please do register to that. Okay, thanks everybody for joining. Bye bye, have a nice weekend.
Thanks everyone. Thanks Moses. Thanks
Thank you
Dennis.
all. Thank you all.
Bye bye.